My name's Karen Antia, and I lived across from the Hess family for 15 years, starting in 1976 approximately.
Just neighbors, huh?
Yes, well, turned into a lot more than neighbors, but we moved in first, and then the Hess family moved in shortly after. Oh, there were a lot of them. No, no, no. I think that the cooperation and watching them move in as much as I did, and I think that, the moving in, that's a hard thing. I'm trying to remember the moving in. There's many impressions that I have, not too many of them moving in, I guess, at that point, more or long term. And just, the way they were as a family. Kyle particularly left such an impression on me. His joy, the way that he glowed when he smiled, and the way he was with his kids. Big example, I think, to everyone. Always out there with them, always out in the middle of a game, no matter what time he came home. They were always going somewhere, on the weekend, and just always very involved. And it was wonderful to see. I did, but I didn't have any preconceived feelings about that at that time. My dad was Catholic, so I was exposed to that. And I was raised in Unity Sunday School and then Christian Science Sunday School till I got married. And then after that, I really didn't go to church. But I read my scriptures quietly by myself, always. I found out when Karen called me on the phone. And then she came over. And I think, I don't even know the time we spent. She must have been over there at least a couple hours. And I think Darius was gone because it was just the two of us in the living room. And I think we talked about so much. And I think maybe at that time we realized that I realized that we believed similar about passing and about maybe the life after and this and that. It's, it's hard for me. It's almost a blur for me because it was so shocking as it was for her. I know we were together and I know we bonded, and we've been bonded ever since. In friendship, we definitely bonded that night. I was concerned very much because she was pregnant, extremely concerned. And, tried my best to reassure her that, things will go on. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Yes, most definitely. I think we became extremely close then. And no matter where I've been since then, we remain close, as well as the kids have stayed close through the years. So it was a definite bond, and it was a time when I from that point on, took a second look at Karen and their whole life.
What do you mean by that? Like, she's just not another neighbor anymore.
Right, exactly. Well, yes, I knew that she was someone special. I knew that she was someone who believed very similar in some ways religiously as I did. It's interesting because I guess I just wasn't looking for something at that time for whatever reason in my life. I wasn't, because I didn't ask beyond that, even though we were involved through the years with the kids between, missions, going away, coming back, baptisms. but I never went beyond, even though at that point realized we had a lot in common. Oh, I don't know. Because I listened to her talk, I think, really. I just let her talk about Kyle.
Did you guys all talk often?
You know, this is so hard. I mean, we talked. I know on occasion we talked. I don't, other than that time, I can't remember. I mean, obviously we were in each other's lives a great deal. And after that, everything with her family coming and everything, tried to kind of stay out of it as much as possible. It's hard for me to remember. Maybe she remembers more than I do. I think all of the neighbors tried very hard to support whenever they could. And I think with that bond, I wanted to more. I don't remember if I did, because she had so much. Once family started coming, there was a lot here. So his family and her family.
You were not. Okay, so they were all there, Karen.
Yeah.
But what happened when they were all gone? You were there.
Was I?
Totally there. I mean, no matter what happened to
Well, I
any of the
tried,
kids,
but
you were there. I could turn to you to babysit, to watch, to hear me complain, to
obviously
give me
it was
counsel.
something I guess I did naturally because I don't remember.
Oh my
It wasn't that
gosh.
big a deal. I mean, I'm so happy to do it.
Oh my gosh, it was so
don't remember it
incredible
being
to
such-
have somebody there that I knew would always be there, no
Aw.
matter what happened.
Well, now I'm going to get all teary-eyed because I didn't realize.
Oh, yeah.
I was just being a neighbor. I really was.
No, you were being more than a neighbor.
Oh,
You
okay.
were being more than a neighbor. Oh my goodness.
Sorry.
I mean, because so that's why we have the bond that we have, because we were part of each other's lives so much.
Oh, I know I wanted to be. I just didn't realize that it was that. I was just trying to be. How can I say?
It's like
You are so.
Kyle's sister said, you didn't know.
That's
You
true.
did not know that you were already a member of the church.
And you know what? What was that? This is what I mean about functions. I don't remember which one that was.
That was Cammie's wedding.
Was that Cammie's wedding? Oh, okay.
Right.
That was okay. See,
Before
I
she
don't
joined the
remember.
church. Yeah.
That's terrible. I know I've been here, but I think the interaction with the Hess family was so every day.
I mean,
That it's family. It's like it's not. It wasn't a big effort. It was just part of it. I mean, her kids were over at my house, it was like extended family. So that's why I didn't mark things, I guess, as much. I don't know.
It's just what you do when you love somebody.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate.
It is
Oh
hard.
dear.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Living on the street was special. We had a special thing. The neighborhood worked as a village,
We did.
and we've never had anything since.
No.
No.
I
Yeah.
like that.
We've never had anything since
Right. And,
like that.
And the Antias were a key point in all that happening
Oh.
too. You have to realize that they're the ones who planned the
dear.
parties and the Christmas get-togethers and the caroling around the street, the out in the street, get ready for school barbecue. I mean, there were all these parties, 4th of July,
Yeah.
all of that. The Antias were kingpin in all making that all happen.
Oh.
And building that for kids' memories forever. I mean, our kids will never forget.
I remember when we had our pool put in, one of my goals was to teach every child on the block to swim because I didn't trust a lock on the gate. And I knew the kids well enough that they'd go over anyway. So the only way I could feel comfortable was to make sure each one of them knew how to swim. So if they paid a visit that they weren't supposed to, so I gave swimming lessons. And then when Kent did his Eagles, was it Kent that did the Eagle or Kirk?
Kirk, one of them. Yeah.
Or both?
Oh.
They did the laps in our pool, and you know, it's hard for me to do specifics in a way. I have to be triggered because that was life. It wasn't. It wasn't. You know, it was special and unique to us.
Together.
But it was every day. You know, it was just everyday life. Hard in a way to put into a few short sentences what living across from each other was like for 15 years. It was 15 years of being close. I mean, you know, a street and two house walls divided us, but I don't know that it did, you know. You know, that's kind of how it was. I mean, we were just part of each other's lives for all those years. We still are. I go to Mexico and kids down there with us, you know. And, you know, I always get tickled when I hear the Charmaine's talk to Cammie or Cyrus going somewhere with Kent, and, you know. It's like, you know, like family. The girls, I mean, the Three Musketeers, you know, Karina, Cammie, Charmaine, all over the place, all over the neighborhood, all the time. You know, in the pool, Charmaine, gymnastics, I mean, the gymnastics programs, oh my gosh. Karina would have, I mean, we all sit out on the lawn or whatever and watch them one after another. All the time.
Kristen would get all the dance.
Oh yeah,
routines
Kristen. Oh
going.
yeah. Oh my gosh, it was constant. You know, it was constant. And Christmas was very easy because you know kids would play piano, they would play the horn. All I did was provide the house and organize it. They did everything. You know, okay. You know, we'd write down, okay, Kristen's going to do this, and Karina's going to do this, and Kent's going to play the saxophone, and you know, and it wasn't very hard. I made some popcorn and some hot cider. You know, you know.
So you were there for Christmas Eve celebrations?
Christmas was always at our house. Halloween was here. This was the big Halloween place.
What's that?
Yeah, this was the big, big Halloween place. Everybody, I think in the whole street, looked forward to the Hess Halloween. I mean, the Hess Halloween was a big thing. And then, I mean, you know, this was a special neighborhood to grow up in. It really was, for the kids.
22 kids. That's incredible, isn't it? 22 kids.
Oh, yeah. And you know what? As far as I know, of course, maybe they didn't tell us about it. I don't think we had a fist fight. I don't think it ever went to that. I mean, that's a lot of kids. And, you know, but I think everybody knew that each mom would, I mean, you know, what are you going to get away with? You're at this house.
They stay-at-home mom times.
Well, yeah. There was a lot of stay-home moms at that time on the block. There was, you know, so if anyone fell down or got hurt, they just go in the first door. I mean, that's how it was. It was really very special. And for someone who comes from the country, you know, absolutely precious, because I can't tell you how many times I told my husband, I can't raise kids in the city. I don't know all that it's about. Seriously, I felt like a fish out of water. But the neighborhood ended at the end of the block. These homes, these 15 homes were it. This was our world.
That's what the kids, they knew they couldn't go past
Yeah,
the cul-de-sac.
yeah, this was our world. And that was okay. That worked for me. That worked for me. You know, this was my small town. This is my small village. Well, I always start out by telling everyone that I lived across the street for 15 years from this wonderful Mormon family. And we went to baptisms, and the kids went to primary, and we were here when everyone went and came back from missions, and everything. And the light never went on, you know. And I think probably a lot had to do with maybe I just wasn't ready, you know, because of Darius. I'm married to someone who's not a Christian, so, you know, church to me was reading scriptures always by myself. It was kind of like something I did personally. And so Karen did give me a Book of Mormon, you know, and it was packed with all my books, you know, and I didn't look at it, you know, typical to many people, you know. But I didn't. And we made 2 moves. And when we moved to the island, I was reading scriptures even more fervently actually, than ever before. And I kept turning to the passage where Christ was baptized over and over. And being raised in Christian Science through my high school, actually earlier that, most of my training was in Christian Science. They believed in baptism spiritually, but not in submersion or whatever. So I, I'm baptized, type of in my mind. So I kept reading it over and over, the same passage. I never studied the Bible from front to back. I would always open it and start reading wherever it opened. Okay, but I kept going to this passage over and over. And it finally dawned on me that if Christ, being so pure and perfect, saw that he needed to be baptized, then what, how much more do I need? So then the light went on. So if the light went on, then I had to choose a church. And except being a part of the Hess family, I've never been a joiner. I wasn't one who really belonged to clubs, at all. And I'm not a real social person either, believe it or not, except with neighbors. So I was a little hesitant, but, I need to be baptized. I need to find a church. So actually, Charmaine came over. My daughter would come over the island, and so we'd go to different churches and different weekends, and we'd walk in. Nope. I mean, they were very nice and everything, but it just didn't fit. So I think we probably went to 2 or 3 churches, and it didn't fit. And then one Sunday she was over, she goes, "Well, Mom, why don't we go to the Mormon church?" Which is hysterically funny because we rented a house that you walked right by the Mormon church every time you went out, right? But that was the last one we chose. So we did. And I walked through the front doors and felt a spirit that I found when I would go to churches I knew. Because when we would travel, we'd go up to Lake Gregory, up by Big Bear, to a cabin every year. I always would leave the kids with dry ice and I'd go off in the woods by myself. And this was how you might equate that with going to church. Whenever I could get away like that, I would go out and I would pray, kind of out loud, and take a walk and just be by myself. And the spirit that I found there was something, even looking for a church, I didn't think I'd find, because I felt it was too personal. It was only from me to God, and that was it. I didn't want anything else in between. And it felt so wonderful. But when I walked through the doors of the Mormon church, it wasn't the greeting, it wasn't anything. It was the spirit. I felt so, that saying, you had me at hello, or you had, well, when I walked through, I recognized that spirit. And so, they laugh. I'm probably the only one that walked in and asked for the missionaries. And it was interesting how it all went, but they had me when I first walked through the door, because it was a spirit. I recognized the spirit. And so made my conversion very easy. And dear.
Well, how did that, did all the interaction with the Hesses over those years
it
come
came
back to you?
It came. It's like, well, I mean, poor Karen, when I finally, did I call you when I was going to get baptized, or did I call you when I was going through the lessons?
First time you walked in the church.
Oh, I called, okay. See, I'm so bad, my memory.
You called the one Sunday.
Yeah, well, yeah, because after all this time. Oh. Oh my gosh. Well, yeah, obviously. I called her. I knew she'd be tickled. And I saw, it reflected back too. Or was that, that reflected back to what her aunt had said when I was at Cammie's wedding, and Karen had asked me to speak, I think, for a little bit. Was that the one that I spoke at, or no? Yeah, it was, okay. Anyway, and which aunt was it? It was Kyle's sister, came up after and said, honey, you don't know it yet, but you're LDS. And you know, I'm a real simple person. And I didn't know what LDS meant. I know what it sounded like. But I just smiled and I said, okay. Because I didn't understand at all at that time. And it just sounded kind of, okay, whatever. I didn't understand it to be what it meant. You know, so that's always a funny little antidote. But I sure reflected back, you know. And this story and this walk that I shared with my 2 girl missionaries through the discussions, I don't know who had more fun, and I do know who did more talking. And you know, I was building in the house at the time, and when I told them the story of how I could recognize the spirit, because I would go out in the woods by myself, and of course then they go, oh, they couldn't wait to get, they couldn't wait to talk about Joseph Smith. They couldn't wait to get to this part. But we were to do the lessons because I was building the house. I already had a little quiet place, a little picnic table up on our 9 acres. I used to go and read scriptures myself anyway, by myself, because my quiet little house had radios going on with the contractors, and my quiet spot wasn't real quiet. And yet I was there from 8 to 5 during the building. And so I would go away up top by myself anyway. So it was a natural place. And so we held a lot of discussions up in my quiet place under the trees, and so they ate that up. Oh, and then Sunday when we were having the discussions in the little branch, they closed us off with those folding walls. And they were trying to get out and get the 3rd lesson, right? And they were trying to get out. And as much as I lived across from, I really didn't know how it went. But I could tell, and I figured, they're trying to ask me to be baptized. I know they are. That was my goal in the first place, anyway, walking in, right? So and they were so cute and so young. And I can still remember, she just couldn't quite get it. And I finally said, they were trying to knock on the door. It was time for the session to end. And I said, well, come, just ask me, just ask me. And I said, fine, don't ask me. The answer is yes. Now let's go. And her mouth dropped open. Her eyes got as big as saucers. She goes, what? I says, yes, I'll be baptized. Now come on. That's the next lesson, our next session. And except for a couple of the discussions, I know twice they go, are you sure? I said, no. Yeah, I'm sure. But I don't know. How can I say, I have been so blessed in my life from a young child. When you receive the Holy Spirit and the Holy Ghost to always be with you, but you can have it once in a while before. And I was so blessed, and I knew that. So the more they talked, the more I recognized. And I said, I've been blessed to be saved, guided at certain times of my life, experiences, that was it. And whether it was due to maybe a difficult childhood, which I had, that's what I turned to. I would go out for walks with my horse, and I would talk to Jesus. He was my friend from an early age. And so I had some of those experiences, and I think that really helped me in the church. I just recognized, I knew it's what I was looking for to learn more. And to be baptized, to learn more. And so when we finished the discussions and was trying to be baptized, there was really, I wanted the Hess family involved again, and Kent was still gone on his mission. So the poor little branch, I think I held him off 2 months, and of course they thought, oh, Karen's having cold feet, because when it's in a live branch, talk about a family, extended family, everybody knows what's going on. So it's like, they're all thinking that I wasn't going to do it. Who waits 2 months, right, after they've said yes? So, I did, and then I remember prior to this talking to our bishop. President Word was his name. And I said, and he was asking me, he says, you know, our church is very active. And I go, yeah, I know. I'm playing at Relief Society and I'm not baptized yet, which I was. and I said, but I says, it does scare me. There was two things that were a little frightening. One was joining something. It really was. Because I wasn't a real joiner. When I talked to my bishop about that, I was so afraid that I would lose the Spirit. For 40-something years, it was very personal. And it frightened me a little bit. And I told him, how am I going to find the Spirit with, in a, it's because I've always gone outside, in a building with all these other people. I was afraid I'd be distracted. I'd felt it when I walked in, but I was, that was a little, I was a little unsure about that, only because I had such a long life of, having it really, you might say one-on-one, without having too much. Anyway, but that was a mistake. I didn't know what I didn't know. That was it. That was it. But anyway, Kent came to baptize me. Kent came down. And as part of this, and as also respect for my family, because this is a big, big, big step for Darius. And, I don't even know if I can get into how big a step. It was hard. It was really hard for me. He felt that the church was taking me away from him. He had and he still does sometimes. But he had those kind of feelings. So it was difficult. It was not easy for him. But so and they still get mad at me about this, some of them. We have a very small branch, and I didn't invite everyone. I really wanted it very quiet again and personal. And first I wanted to have it out in the river. And then we decided not to do that. And I'm so glad I did, especially when I saw Kent. Oh, no. I mean, because it was in November. A little cold. But I was trying to emulate how Christ was baptized. That's what I was, coming from. But anyway, we did it in the font. But it was very quiet and very personal. But I'm told one of the most moving baptisms they've had in a very, very long time in the branch. Because it was so very personal. Karen spoke and Kent baptized, and I mean, it was very, very personal. I mean, I was there for parts of the funeral and stuff too. That I was, but it was all. I mean, some of it I remember and some of it I don't. It was, it was all still shocking to me too. That it's really hard for me to remember. I remember. I remember one thing, and maybe it's because of my medical background, but I remember his dad. I remember his dad taking me up when we were viewing the body. And he said, look what they did to my boy. I don't know where you were, Karen. You weren't there then. And I don't know if he knew I had a medical background, or it was, he felt when they were doing, I guess they had for the autopsy or whatever, And so he actually, he pulled it back and then showed me, what they. And it was so hurtful to him, and that's what I remember. Is look what they did to my boy. Just as Kyle was such an example as a father, Karen has set new heights and standards on motherhood. Not just because she raised the kids without Kyle, but how she raised the kids without Kyle. And I don't think she realizes what an example that she has been to many people, and assuredly me, most definitely. And like I told Kent in Mexico, and I hope you guys are listening, that after you have the congratulations to retirement, I think it would be very nice to have a thank you, Mom trip, because you all need to thank her for everything that she's done. I mean, I've never seen a woman put her complete self out for the life of her children, and that was it. That was it. That's been Karen's life. And it's, the epitome of motherhood. Completely self-sacrificing. And I didn't know Kyle like I know Karen, obviously, because we got so close, and I mean, but I observed him, but his legacy, oh my, I could write it, because it's in this woman standing here and his kids, and I think that's some of the things I said and when I spoke, such a reflection. If you want to know Kyle Hess, I mean, look at Kirk and look at Ken. I mean, I see it in both of them, so much of them.
Kent has, well, Kirk has the humor too, and Kent does too.
Yeah, but no, they have the adventure, the playfulness. I mean, that's all Kyle.
That's the way
So, in a way, I observed him with the kids for those 2 years, but I could see him, all the years we were here, and the kids, and in Karen. Yeah. He was never gone. He was here. Yeah. I understand why it was so more important. I always thought it was wonderful. How can I say this? I've had experiences from the other side of the veil, so I know how close they are. I know. I've personally. So I think I thought it was wonderful that she had done it so much, because others don't. And at the same time, I just always, I just kind of know he was here, and I just think it was important. And the fact of his children knowing was yes, that was important to me too, because I know it was important to Karen.